And after a while, we see that we have a relationship with God this way. And then after a while, by the time we get to Christian scriptures or the New Testament, we see that we have a relationship with God this way. Using and finding and looking at stories in the Bible this way is a joyous, expansive opportunity to take those stories and have them come alive for us today, to have meaning and relevancy in our lives today. This is a tremendous gift. When we look at things metaphysically, we can broaden our perspective. When we look at things metaphysically, we can deepen our understanding of God. And when we look at things metaphysically, we can actually just blow the top off of any ideas that we've been holding on to that no longer serve us, so miracles can occur. Looking at things metaphysically, in Unity, we've given ourselves or developed some very powerful tools. In 1931, this book, the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, was published. It was compiled by Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, and Theodosia DeWitt, based on an incredible number of lexicons and research. And today, to this day, it is considered the primary tool, the primary resource for metaphysical interpretation. So whether it's a student from some other New Thought community or just a curious seeker from the world at large, or in Unity, whether it's you or whether it's myself, we can use this book, the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, to help bring alive and give meaning to the stories in the Bible. Now, how do we know that the meaning that we assign these stories in the Bible is true? Well, there's a process for it. There's a process. First, we look at the story, we read the story, we extract the different elements out of the story, whether it's the people, the places, or the actual event that happened, and then we look it up, and then we create these meanings. But how do we know those meanings are true? How do we know that they're accurate? How do we know that we have the ability to assign and create meaning? How do we know that we have the audacity to do that? Because for a long time, we've been meaning-making machines. It is our nature. What is the meaning of life? Whatever you want it to be. Whatever you want it to be. We actually assign meaning to everything that happens in our lives. That's our nature. If you've taken Landmark Forum or other seminars that have come out of the human potential movement, you'll be familiar with the concept that we're meaning-making machines. We do it consciously because we want to create a context for our lives. We do it consciously because it helps us be happy. We do it consciously because that's how the game is played. This last week, I went to the grocery store and I saw somebody I knew. And she talked to me. So that must mean that she likes me. Right? Or it could be that this is the South and she was being friendly and she was really just being polite and she doesn't like me at all. Or it could be that because she was a congregant and knew I was the minister, if she didn't talk to me, God was just going to strike her dead, and that was that. I can make it mean anything I want. But I do make it mean something. That I found this person in the grocery store and I talked to her. It actually doesn't have anything to do with her at all, that encounter. It's what I make it mean. We've been doing this since we were in utero. We heard a noise in utero and we thought it meant something. We heard our parents laughing and we thought, wow, it must be a really joyful place in the world. Or we heard them fighting and we're like, oh man, I think I'm going to stay in here. Whatever we heard, we made it mean something. And those meanings from when we're really little go into, as words and events, they go into our subconscious minds and they stay there. Very often we don't remember what they were, but they are there present in our subconscious minds, which means they still color our beliefs. And because they still color our beliefs, they still inspire our thinking. And because they're inspiring our thinking, they are still having an impact on the decisions that we make. When I was 18 months old, my mother had a miscarriage. Now, many people go through years of therapy, or if you have a spiritual experience, this memory can come to you like this, but I was in my 50s, and all of a sudden, I remember standing in the hospital with my father. There were green tiles on the wall, there were some chairs over here, and he was holding my hand, and I must have had asked him something. And this is what I remember, my dad saying, "Not now, Mindy. Your mother's needs are more important." Okay? That's what I remember. I don't know if that's what happened, but that's what I remember. And it went into my subconscious mind. And now that I have this memory, it's like, well, you know what? It doesn't explain everything, but it explains a lot. It explains how I had developed patterns of behavior that led to indecision and authority issues. You know, Mindy, what do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want for dinner? You know, Mindy, what do you want to be when you grow up? I don't know. What do you want me to be when I grow up? You know, and then be really mad because I knew what I wanted to be when I grew up, but that's not what my mother said. I mean, it's like those kinds of issues. I'm so grateful to have the memory of the phrase, because now I can begin to heal it. Now I can begin to assign a different meaning to what happened. Now I can say, gee, what does that mean? And I get to pick a different meaning. In his book, Finding Inner Courage, Mark Nepo asks the question, what does it mean? And then he takes that and he translates it to Spanish. And then the really neat part is when you translate it back to English, it means, what does it want to say? Like, what is this memory trying to say to me? What is that phrase that happened and that is now surfacing from my subconscious really meaning and wanting to say to me? What is going on, and what do I want to say about it? What do I want to make it mean? This is the gift of interpretation. I get to assign a new meaning. I get to recreate. I get to regenerate. I went to see the movie, The War Room, the other day. I went on Friday. And yes, I had to do a lot of translating. When I go see something or read something or listen to something that's very fundamental in nature, I engage in an activity that I call translating, because it was about a family that turned to Christ to recreate happiness in their lives. So in my Unity translation, it's about a family that redirected their life to God, that redirected their thoughts to divine mind, that gave meaning and importance to being in alignment with God, to seeking first the kingdom in order to create heaven on earth. And through that activity of revisioning, seeing what was going on differently, holding the high watch, they actually did recreate happiness in their life. How many of you are familiar at all with Neville Goddard? He was a 20th century, his works just got published in the anthology, and together he's an amazing man. He says, now I ask you to continue to test your creative power by practicing revision. If you hear something that is unlovely, don't accept it, but instantly revise it. Hear the words that ought to have been spoken and persuade yourself to the best of your ability that it is so. Persuade yourself to the best of your ability. I can revision what my dad said. Mindy, you're important to me, but right now let's take a moment and fix our attention on your mother. That would have been so different. That would have been so different. Neville Goddard tells the story of a student who was failing in school. She was 16 years old. She was rude. She was bad. She was unethical. And the school was going to expel her, and they called him in on a Friday to talk to the teachers and support the teachers with the process of expelling the student. And what Neville came in with and said was, revision her. Revision her. And her teacher, her primary teacher, went home and saw her as good, saw her as capable. Even though her grades didn't show it, even though her behavior didn't show it, that teacher saw this young woman as something else. And on Monday morning when she walked in and they were going to take her down to the principal's office, she looked at that teacher and said, "Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for believing in me." Revisioning is so powerful. Neville Goddard goes on to say, "I firmly believe that if you will wisely and daily use the pruning shears of revision, that you will find there is no objective beyond your ability to realize." And I mean that seriously. No objective beyond your ability to realize. That one is unwell, you prune that branch. You don't accept one thing in the world as final until it conforms to the ideal you want to realize in the world. But you do it daily. If you do not prune it daily, you will get out of the habit, then weeds will grow. Every man who really is a gardener, who calls himself a gardener in the garden of God, for every day is the opportunity to really prune the tree, this wonderful tree. If you take me seriously today, he says, tonight do not let the sun descend upon any vexation of the day. Just look at it. Don't deny it. Don't duck it. Look at it that you may prune and reshape it yourself. Now, in the book of Acts, in the Bible, there's a story about revisioning. And it's called The Lame Man That Was Healed. The apostles John and Peter were going to the temple to pray. The temple that they were going to was called the Beautiful Gate Temple. And when they got to the gate of the Beautiful Gate Temple, there was a beggar who'd been carried there every day by his family, who was lame from birth, and he was asking them for alms. When he did, Peter fixed his attention on the beggar and said this, "I have no silver or gold, but what I have I give you. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, stand up and walk." Now, if you came from the Baptist tradition, you know he got up. There's a song and about singing and dancing and all that, and that may be how you learn the story. But I have no silver or gold, but what I have I give you. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, stand up and walk. Now, the art and science of metaphysical interpretation is to read the story, which we just did, and then pull out the elements and go to the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary and assign the meanings to them, and it looks like this. And it's kind of clunky because we're just pulling them out. Peter's the power of faith, John's the power of love, the temple is that regenerated body of man, that perfect body that we have, whole. The gate is the choice point for higher consciousness. We could stay the same or we could get a higher consciousness. The beggar is the earnest prayer to escape the sense consciousness or the intention that we're holding for ourselves. Silver and gold are love and wisdom, and Jesus Christ is the perfect expression of wholeness. So that's a list, and then the next step is to clunk through it, so we reorder it. We find ourselves at a choice point. We can go into a higher consciousness, or we can stay the same. We want to get into the temple, so we want that regenerated body. We want that healthy experience. Our intention is to escape the sense consciousness, to escape any appearance of lack and limitation, and be in that higher consciousness. Love and wisdom are good, but they're not enough. The greatest gift we can give ourselves is to take the power of love, the power of faith, with our imagination, revision a different outcome. And when we hold that revision, miracles happen. Still kind of clunky, huh? Still kind of clunky. So if we now know this with that kind of intelligence, we can take it inside and say, you know, when I love myself, that's good, but that's not enough. When I get advice and guidance from outside, that's good, but it's not enough. I will only be able to see a new future for myself and live in that new future when I take my power of faith and my power of love and my power of imagination and call upon the divinity that lives in me to live fully, to live abundantly, to have plenty of friends, to have everybody I see be my ally, to have money in my bank account, to live in a beautiful place like Wilmington, North Carolina. That's when the miracle occurs, when I can make that shift. And when I make the shift for me, I raise the consciousness of the planet.
Amen.
Thank you very much. One person changes his level of thought, the consciousness of the whole changes to that degree. So if I believe it a little bit, the consciousness of the whole believes it a little bit. If I step out in faith with love and believe it a little bit more, then the whole believes it a little bit more. This is powerful stuff. This is how lives are changed. This is where transformation comes from. This is liberation. This is liberation from thoughts that we have planted in our subconsciousness that are not serving us. So let's affirm together. As I revision for myself, I benefit others. As I revision for myself, I create heaven on earth. Canon Farrar says, I'm only one person. But I am one person. You are only one person. But you are one person. So I ask you to just look around the room. Pick out one face and memorize it. Pick out one face, so look around the room, pick out one face, and then as you read this, think of that person. As you revision for yourself, you benefit others. As you revision for yourself, you create heaven on earth. And then we can say it from our perspective. When we revision for ourselves, we benefit others. As we revision for ourselves, we create heaven on earth. This is the good news. This is the meaning I choose to give to life.